Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl, as well as the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I cool the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Supergirl, you can skip to what I had to say about the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Supergirl. A lot of stuff went down in this episode, so let's kind of break everything down. I thought it was kind of interesting from the very beginning that Manchester was like, yo, Supergirl, partner up, yeah. And it was just so interesting because it seemed like, obviously, he was hiding a lot of his intentions, because we know, as the audience know, that he killed those children of Liberty. And that's even getting used against Supergirl, because it's like, oh, these missing people. This is all because of Supergirl, because she's flying around doing all this and that. And now all these other aliens say, oh, because Supergirl does what she wants to do, that now they have permission to do what they want to do. It's like, is she the hero, or is she the seed to our extinction and stuff like that? And it's just like, oh, Ben sowing those lines of deceit even more. But that whole Manchester thing kind of took turns, like in some regards. It's like, no. He's like, don't call for backup and stuff like that. And it just him being kind of like you could tell it, like, obviously he was showing his more aggressive side, but in the grand scheme of things, it was all part of a plan, because it's like, oh, to push her away, because he knew that John would back him up. That's why he told to John. It's like, I need you to go to Supergirl, apologize for me. It's like, it's all part of a calculated plan, which is like, yo, like, he ain't no slouch when it comes to this situation. I mean, to be fair, he's focused on his revenge and nothing matters. He will betray anyone, even going as far as what he did for Supergirl. Like, we know, like, he didn't believe in his message and stuff like that, because it's like, yeah, he loved Fiona. It's like, oh, he's willing to do whatever it takes to get close to Agent Liberty, even going as far as pretending to work with him. But Agent Liberty already knew he was from the beginning, because before they got Fiona, they probably looked into her life and knew exactly who Manchester Black was. Probably even found out information about him based on the fact that he showed up with John and stuff to rescue her. There might have been cameras and stuff around that they found out that way. But you also gotta give major props to Manchester Black kicking ass like that, like knocking people down, like hand-to-hand fighting, and also that gunplay is like, yo! And also the fact that it matters, like I said, he's doing some vigilante stuff full-blown, like, because it's interesting, because, like, Supergirl's never had that. Like, the only show that's had, like, someone do stuff like that, like I made comparisons to, was Arrow. That's the only TV show that, like, drops people like that, which is crazy to me. It's crazy to see that in a world like that. But it brought up an interesting thing, because it brought up a whole conversation of duality, because everyone thought, like, oh, they could trust Manchester Black. Even John put so much faith and belief in him, saying he's a good person at heart. He's mad and angry and everything, understanding because of the whole Fiona situation. But I think John didn't really know just how deep that hate and that pain went, and how much it corrupted him. To be fair, he talked about it a little bit, but we don't know to the fullest extent what kind of person he was before Fiona met him, and Fiona changed him, and with her gone, she is the light that lit the darkness inside of him, and now that darkness is completely taking over. And like I said, he's willing to do whatever it takes for his revenge, because that's all he's focused on, even betraying allies like John and Supergirl, because he got what he wanted. Because in the long run, he ended up finding out Ben's name, because he ends up going to, like, a Lockwood property at the end, which the sad thing about that situation is, like, Ben has a family, which I wouldn't put it past Manchester to use them. He'd never hurt them. But the thing is that you have to almost say that with some skepticism, because there's a part of me that's like, he's willing to do whatever it takes. But he's probably in his mind, it's like, these are people who signed up for this. His wife and child want nothing to do with this. They don't know about that side of him. But these other people, they represent the hate, the same hate that led to Fiona dying. So that's why he puts them down with no hesitation. So I don't really have as much skepticism. I'm sure he's going to, when the time comes, he's going to threaten Ben's family, but he would never actually hurt them. Because it's so interesting, because Ben wants to make it seem like, oh, all these people, all these, aliens are the issue and stuff like that. Like, oh, pointing towards, like, oh, these people being missing. It's like, that was all done by a human that's doing this. Why? Because you killed the woman he loved, who ended up being an alien. So it's kind of like, he talks about these monsters and stuff like that, but you yourself have created a monster. It's kind of like this vicious cycle, because the alien situation, in particular, not all aliens, but the particular invasions, plus Ben trying to justify, and point his hatred at other people just because of things not working out in his life. Am I saying he shouldn't be mad, but it's just like to take it out on a whole race just because things didn't work out in your life and, you know, this and that. The whole situation with Dad. It's just the whole thing. And it's just kind of interesting that you're perpetuating this hate, and your need for hatred created someone that's coming for you. So it all kind of comes full circle in regard. So I think that in itself is very interesting. But this duality conversation also goes, I mean, actually it kind of fits a lot of aspects of this episode. I guess you could make the same argument about Lena and Jimmy. For one, Jimmy willing to, like at first, like the fact is that like, oh, he had Jimmy leaving with the mask and stuff like that. I was like, Tom is in on this, isn't he? Tom isn't actually a good guy. He's lying to you. Why can't you say that this is all a trap, Jimmy? And it turned out not to be a trap. I was like, oh wow, Tom is actually a good guy. He actually did portray Agent Liberty because he actually thought like, no, like this is just an interview and stuff like that. I mean, it's like you should have figured as much because it's like all the cloak and dagger of covering up his face and stuff like, you know, Jimmy's face and stuff like that, not letting them know where they were initially. But it's like on the grand scheme of things, it kind of is like, no, it kind of makes sense because you don't want to give too much of your location and who you are away. But Jimmy was willing to sit there and listen because he wanted to understand Agent Liberty's story, to understand why he got to here, because it's like your personal story is kind of what led to all this hatred. It's like something in your life went wrong that led to all of this hatred. So he wanted to kind of hear that out. But the thing is, Jimmy was trying to listen, but Agent Liberty is kind of past listening. It's just kind of like, it's kind of at the point of action now and nothing else really matters, which is interesting considering the fact that he's off spewing his hatred as Ben, which I think is just kind of interesting. But yeah, they were going to force Jimmy's hand. And Jimmy said an interesting thing, which I think later on his mind changed about it. But it was kind of like, yeah, Agent Liberty can, you know, he destroyed a monument. Doesn't matter. We will rebuild it when it's all said and done. He can try and throw my reputation, you know, to do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter because I know who I am. And at the end of the day, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because that's always been my concern. It's like, Jimmy, you don't realize he's about to manipulate you and use you. And it's like in the long run, Jimmy was like, no, it's okay. Let him do that because no matter what happens with my reputation, I am who I am. I know who I am. Like if I just left you here to die, Tom, like what kind of person would that make me be? Like I've made myself into this man that I am today, and that man wouldn't do that. He wouldn't leave you here, you know, just to protect something as simple as my reputation. But later on, Jimmy regrets that because it's like his decision to do that. He didn't think further ahead of like the consequences of what that would do. It would destroy his life, destroy his reputation. It even almost led to Kara dying, and it made him kind of second guess like his perspective on this whole situation. Like I think he probably still wants to keep up the whole aspect of kind of, because I think Agent Liberty is someone he probably feels like he can't talk to, but the other people, he got through to Tom, like what he represented was able to kind of reach to Tom and kind of rid him of his hatred to a certain degree, kind of at least getting him to see the other side of things. So maybe Jimmy can try and reach the other Children of Liberty, but probably trying to reach Agent Liberty himself. That probably won't happen going forward. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what Jimmy does going forward with this, because it did give him a different perspective on Lena's position of her doing something. Because for Jimmy, it's like, I compromised my beliefs to do something like that, which Kara was like, yeah, but you did it to save Tom's life. But it's like, yeah, but it would have cost me so much because I was so, you know, it's an interesting slope. That is an interesting situation he found himself in, and it's one of those things of like, I don't know, like you compromising yourself like that would have been the right thing because it would have been meaning to save Tom's life. But in my opinion, I was like, Tom is in no danger from the beginning. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh no, it's all part of a plan, which I guess later on they could make some long twist to be like, oh yeah, it really was all part of a plan. But to be fair, it wouldn't amount to anything because the plan ultimately failed, so Tom would have no reason to help Jimmy at that point like he did. So it's like, no, it's legit. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, you did the right thing in that regard. Everything worked out in the end, but that's still the situation of things could have easily not worked out. So he's trying to patch things up with Lena, but Lena kind of went through what she did this episode, so we'll kind of get to that. So I did think it was kind of an interesting. I like what they did with Lena's side of things, where it's like her running the experiments. She's trying to keep like a little bit of dissonance between her, not dissonance, but distance is a more appropriate word, between, well, I'll go with distance, between her and the patient. It ended up being a dude named Adam who was okay with taking part in this trial and everything. Lena gave him a fake name. Was it like Kieran? But obviously at first she wasn't trying to bond with him, but then she lets him know about what this is all about. It's like, yeah, this is about potentially curing people of everything, plus giving them abilities. Because it's interesting her perspective, and even why she chose Adam, because when it came to that question about the spider, what do you do? And it's like, you do nothing because you don't know what the spider wants. And for her, it's like, that's what I want. Because she doesn't want a hero who thinks they know what's right and wrong, which I guess that's supposed to be kind of a shot at Supergirl, but I guess that kind of goes for anyone, not just her specifically, any superheroes out there who automatically assume they know what's best for everyone else. Because Lena's willing to look at this from both sides of the perspective, which I guess you could make the argument maybe Kara isn't 100%, because like to be fair, she still has both sides of the perspective. Lena has one side of the perspective trying to look at the other worst. Kara kind of is the same. It's actually interesting because I never even thought about that too. Like they both have like both sides of the perspective. Like Lena representing the humans but having no issue with aliens, and then you have Kara who is an alien who lived mostly as a human, and it's just kind of like interesting that it's an interesting dynamic, like both of them tackling the situation from two different perspectives with kind of two different outcomes. For Kara, she wants to broker peace between everyone, which, Lena does too, but she wants to go about it by making humans, being able to cure humans of everything, but also give them abilities. But once again, that's something I've talked about before too. And that's something the show talked about. It's like, well, how do you justify who gets the abilities and who don't? Once again, we see what happens on Earth 1 with metahumans. Like, plenty of people get abilities. It's kind of like, yeah, that particle accelerator wasn't, discriminatory. It just kind of gave people here and there abilities. So it works out in some cases because you get like a Dinah situation going on. Granted, Dinah had her dark period, but that led to, Barry and Cisco getting abilities, becoming the metahumans that they are. So, and you still have like Ralph. I added him differently just because obviously he got his powers from a different, dark matter situation. But you get the point I'm trying to make of like, there are people who have good intentions with their abilities, but there are others who don't. And it's just kind of an interesting thing of just like, yeah, I don't need a hero. I just need someone who will be there to kind of represent like, it's kind of like that situation of like the whole representation of what the atomic bombs represented. They represented it like, or rather nuclear weapons, I guess would be kind of another apt discussion of like, by having it, you make it so that no one else does, because it's like a mutual assured destruction type of thing. To a certain degree, that's me going to like an extreme example of what Lena's trying to do, but it's like by giving people the power, the playing field is even, so humans don't feel threatened anymore, but also like it also kind of keeps a check and balance. If there's any humans that are in danger from aliens, they can protect themselves, but there's also those situations where what about humans who just kind of get a little aggro and decide they want to attack aliens anyway because they feel like they've been pushed around their entire lives, and it's like, oh, these aliens always felt powerful, well, we got powers now too. So that's a whole argument in itself, but we learned quite a bit about Adam. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, he got his brother's kidney and he feels bad about it because it's like, my brother was a good person. Me, I wouldn't have made that sacrifice like my brother did if the situation was on the other foot. I'm the one that was sick. I'm the one that's selfish. Like, he died because of me, because he gave me his kidney. It was supposed to be routine surgery. And then, Lena ended up confiding in him about... And the sad thing is, Lena never told him her real name, but she confided in him stuff she's probably told no one, the whole story about her mom. Because when she was like, yeah, she lost someone who was kind of her superhero, I was like, oh. It's like, it had to be about her mom, her biological mom. Because she did nothing back then when her mom drowned and died. And it's like, but you're 4 years old. Like, you can't blame yourself for that. But she's like, the fact of the matter is, I did nothing. I didn't call for help. I just stood there and just let it happen. And that's like, I think that stems from, it's a combination. And Lena kind of gets into it of like, there's a part of her that feels like she fits in with the Luthor family, even though she despises them and everything that they represent, this evil legacy that family has. But it's almost like I fit alongside of them. But that's why Lena has struggled even more so to be a good person, because not only because she was raised by the Luthors, it's because she thought she was a bad person. She thought she fit in with the Luthors, so she tries to overcompensate by trying to do so much good, not just for the Luthor name, but just for her own name, for her own sanity, for her own sake, that like maybe just hoping that she isn't a terrible person, which she's not. She always tried to do the right thing. Like I said, at the end of the day, though, I am curious whether or not, she isn't a Luthor by blood, but that name tarnishes you in some shape or form. And I'm curious when the series comes to an end, when everything plays out the way it does between her and Kara, what path? Will we see a repeat of the whole situation with Lex and Clark or not? That's the big question in this situation. So, but sadly, when it was all said and done, Adam died, which it's crappy. I kind of felt like, I was like, oh, is he about to get powers? He's going to be someone that I slightly might know of in the comic books, and turns out not to be the case. It's like, he displayed powers, but like I think Lena was saying, like at the end of it all, it's like an 87% chance of survival, and it's like, it's heartbreaking that the situation came down to that. And you know, like I said, Jimmy's trying to repair things between them, but it's like, going through what she's doing now, there's probably going to be a part of her that she wants to probably eventually get that for Jimmy, but it's like in the state is in right now, she can't give it to the person that she loves, and she also feels regrettable because it's like, because of her, an innocent person died. Like he volunteered because it's like sacrifices have to be made, but no matter, even if they have to be made, that will weigh on your heart. You know, that's why she wanted to keep the distance between them, and I think going forward, she's probably going to keep it even more because she chose Adam amongst all the people, so that makes her feel even more culpable for it, because it's like, I chose you amongst anyone else, and so all the blame with that situation lies on me. So it's a complicated situation. I'm very interested to see where they end up taking all of this going forward. And now moving on to the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead, a great episode. There is a lot in this episode we need to break down, but let's just get into it. Obviously, Michonne comes to Hilltop, and they are not welcome. Yeah, she runs into the lady from the kingdom. She's kind of like, what's your business here? Not even a warm welcome, even though they've got history like that. Terror staring Michonne down. Like, we don't know, still don't know what went down, but whatever it is, like, everyone in Hilltop, maybe even the kingdom, I don't know. We don't know how people in the kingdom feel, but it seems like in particular people in Hilltop don't like Michonne. I don't know whether it's everyone in Alexandria or just her in particular, because she ends up talking about it later on, about basically there are choices she made that basically made it so that they're alive now to hate her. What it is exactly, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with Maggie, and it's like, I love that it's almost like this mystery element of like, what the hell happened to kind of piss everybody off, because it's interesting, because like everything was about bringing the group together, and now whatever went down in that time frame has destroyed the trust between them, because it's like, Alexandria is Alexandria, the kingdom is the kingdom, Hilltop is Hilltop. There's no more bond between us, because basically Michonne was kind of like, we can't pretend like there's not broken worlds between all of us. Oceanside gets brought up this episode, but we still don't know where 100% they stand. I guess like they're just the fisher people, like they handle like, you know, fishing and stuff like that. So I guess they trade well, I don't know, because one of the people, Rodney, he was asking, like, are they all girls? So it's like, they must not meet with them directly or something like that for that to be the case, you know? Which I think is so fascinating. For him not to know that, like, it's mainly, like, ladies in that group. So it must mean that, I mean, do they deal with all three groups? I'd assume, but it's probably just, like, a one-to-one basis. It's not, like, all together, like, I mean, I'm so curious, like, what went down? What was so terrible that Michonne did? Because even she's kind of like, I'm not going to apologize, at least not in a way that they're going to think I should. Because even Sadiq was trying to tell her, like, no, I'm on your side. It's like, Michonne's like, it's not even all that. She knew coming back to Hilltop there'd be people that hate her, but she didn't kind of expect things to kind of be as hard as they are, like, right now. So, you know, because even Carol's like, I understand why you have your reasons for not, you know, wanting to do this whole fair situation. I know how hard it is, but you're not the only one who's lost stuff. It's like, we've both lost children, and we still managed to kind of get to where we are. It's interesting, because we end up finding out her son's name is RJ. I can only assume Rick Jr., but I could be 100% wrong on that. But I'm really curious, because like I said, it seems more so like it's only Alexandria and Hilltop that has the issues, because like, Carol and the Henry were kind of welcomed with open arms, so there's still good blood there. But I'm wondering, like, is Alexandria seems like it's even, cut ties with the kingdom in that regard. But it's because you even had Tara kind of making a sarcastic remark of like, yeah, the old team's about to be back together because Daryl's all helping look for Eugene and stuff like that. Plus Michonne's also finding out more and more deception was going on behind her back, because she's like, oh, Aaron had a channel to Hilltop, which Sadiq is like, it wasn't a channel, we're all friends, we're supposed to be family. Which even Michonne was kind of like, yeah, we're always going to be family, but the fact of the matter is too much stuff is broken. Sadly, Henry also ended up finding out in this episode that is it Owen, Enid are a thing, which kind of sucks for him, because it's like, I'm sure Enid was one of, like, not really the main reason, but one of the reasons why he was kind of happy to kind of take this apprenticeship, because he liked her. We already kind of brought that up. Was that last episode or the episode before last? Either way. And sadly, he went out with the others. Was it Addie, Gage, and Rodney, and kind of got drunk. And he killed that walker that they had, like, they were just, like, messing around with. And he's like, if I have to explain it to you, it's something you can't understand. I'm treating that as kind of like a Morgan thing that kind of passed down, that even after all this time, that's still there. Because it's like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, these things aren't supposed, like, because for him, I'm sure it's not like a whole, like, oh, they're meant to be our playthings. It's like killing them is kind of like a mercy in a sense. And it's kind of like, the fact of the matter is that you have the nerve to sit here and just play around with the walker is messed up, you know? So we'll see in the long run what ends up, you know? Because it's interesting, because when the time came for it, like, he didn't rat the kids out. Like, they're the reason he got the alcohol, why he got drunk and stuff like that. Because for him, it's like, he saw his mom cry for the first time, and it's like, his mom is tough. Carol's like the toughest of tough people, but for him, seeing her vulnerable like that, it made him go, holy crap, it really sunk in just how important this is, because it's like, everyone is counting on, the kingdom is counting on him to do this, like, so many people, and I think he didn't realize just what he was signing up for. Like, I think he knew, but he didn't know. No, you don't really know the depths of how important something really is, and just like how crucial it is. And, you know, it just didn't really sink in. Even the fact is that he's like, oh man, living somewhere else is kind of kicking him. Because even like Gage and Addie, I'm assuming the same thing applies to Rodney too. It's like, they've lived in Hilltop most of their lives, so they've never really experienced living anywhere else. Comma, I am terrible with names. I need to bring that up, because it's like, oh yeah, like there's Connie, Magnus, her name is Yumiko. I think I called her Micah last episode, Mika. They were probably calling her, like, they were calling her, I don't know, Maiko. I don't even know if that's what I call, like, I'm terrible with names. Like, I have to hear names a couple times, so I just wanted to make that clear before things kind of, you know, I should always say that, because I'm like, this new group, I'm always going to mess up their names just because I'm still not acquainted with their names 100% yet. So like, I got their names now, but I guarantee you next time I'm going to have them completely forgotten. I'm also, you know, so I'm still got to remember the other two's names as well. Side note, I think I finally remember what I knew the dude from. The musician dude who's all about music and stuff like that. That dude is in Fantastic Beasts movies. I think that's what I know him for, but I feel like there's other things I've seen him in too, but I think that's probably why he was even more so on my mind, because obviously the most recent Fantastic Beasts movie came out, so maybe that was why that was kind of in my head, but nevertheless. But I think the blacksmith, he's willing to give Henry another chance because he sees that Henry's kind of learning from his mistake. And the fact of the matter is, he was in that situation not too long ago, kind of drunk off his ass. Obviously, that was the whole Gregory situation. So I think he's, you know, he knows, he's like, I've literally been exactly where you are. Because he also brought it up at that time. He also had like his whole issue of alcoholism kind of back in the day too, when everything kind of really happened. So even more so on that level of like how he can understand Henry's situation. So there's that. Then another interesting angle to this episode was the whole Negan thing. It didn't even cross my mind when we saw Negan before, like during the whole like him and Judith talking, where it's like, Negan's not a hot piece of mess like he was when we saw his confrontation with Maggie. It's like he broke down. And it's like, oh, it seems like Gabriel's the reason for that. And it seems like Gabriel's trying to reach to him, but he can't. He's not trying. Like, I think Negan's got like this this defense mechanism, whereas like when people try to get close, try to see, scratch at who he really is beneath the surface, he kind of pushes them away. He makes sarcastic jokes. He says stuff that he knows would piss people off and push them away, because it's like, oh yeah, because of this window of a guy, it's better than television. I was super into television when that was the thing. And he's like, but the fact is, I've been here so long, people forget that I'm even here. And that's when the real juicy stuff comes out, because he's like, oh, the whole stuff about Rosita, and Gabriel's like, and I already know how Rosita feels about me. He's like, yo, who said it had anything to do with you, Gabe? And you see it kind of bothers him a little bit, and he kind of smiles and goes, when Gabe leaves. But I think there's a part of him that kind of felt bad about doing what he's doing, but it's like a defense mechanism. He's been the way he has been for so long, so being vulnerable with people, opening up to people, kind of caring about people like that, I think it's still something that's hard for him, in my opinion. I don't know. But it does seem like Gabriel is kind of slowly, trying to get towards him. But obviously, after finding out about the Rosita situation, he kind of snapped. It's kind of interesting because you never see Gabriel like that. Also, what's interesting is that Negan's like, oh yeah, the whole you and Rosita thing. Hot damn. I'm like, how do you know about that? He's like, has Gabriel been talking to you about that? I mean, to be fair, like, Gabe's been visiting him like once a week and stuff like that. But it's like, wow, you kind of gotten tight like that, which is really interesting. But at the same time, maybe it's just a combination of like overhearing stuff. So there's that. But yeah, just because he was so frustrated about the Rosita thing, because it's like somebody's got to watch you, so I'm stuck here watching you rather than being Rosita. It's like I already got to clean up your shit. I'd rather not hear it. And it's like, whoa. And once again, you can tell that it bothered, Negan. And then, like, someone left his cage unlocked. I wondered that, because the person who was there that uncuffed him must not have even bothered worrying about it, because you see Gabe do it, and it's like, that person didn't do it either? Or did someone purposely leave his cage unlocked? Was that kind of, is it supposed to be like Gabriel trying to do like a roundabout test? Is it supposed to be like forcing his hand, like, oh, let him go so other people can capture him and he becomes other people's issue? Or, I'm curious about that. Like, was it on purpose? Was it an accident? And I was curious what Negan was going to do. There was a part of me that's like, is Negan going to surprise us and actually go back inside the cage or something? It's like, no, threw the tennis ball, and it's like, oh, got my freedom. So the question becomes like, okay, so what's going to happen with that? Like, is Negan going to take center stage with all this? Because once again, I know a little bit hearing stuff about comic books. I don't know what Negan's story is like in the comic books. I haven't looked at it, so I don't know if he's actually still around and kicking in the comic books. He might be dead for all I know. I'm not sure. We'll just kind of have to, so I'm kind of okay with that. That's another reason why I haven't looked into it. Like, once a character dies in the show, then I'm going to look into see their whole situation in the comic books. Because there's certain characters I looked into recently that was like, oh, that character's been alive for so long. And turns out, oh, they're actually dead in the comic books. I won't talk about it because it might be considered kind of a spoiler in certain regards, depending on how far you're in the comic books, if you're reading the comic books. So I won't talk in that much in regard, but it's like, oh, there's one particular character. I was like, oh yeah, I know that character's alive. Happened to look it up just like the other day because I was looking up something for a video kind of related to The Walking Dead and subject, and I was like, oh, that character's dead now. I think that character might have been dead for a little while now, and it's like, holy crap. Because I felt like I just looked it up last season whether or not that character was alive in the comic books, and they're dead now. Okay, interesting. It might have been last season. It might have been season 7. I don't know. I think it might have been season 7. Either way, I'm kind of going on a huge tangent there. So, very fascinated by that. And then we had the whole situation with the walkers. I thought that was so interesting because they started noticing, it's like, these walkers are acting a little weird, because they had brought it up before. It's like the numbers actually kind of seem like it's more walkers and stuff like that. And the way they were kind of gathered around, it's like, oh, you hear the whispers and stuff, and you see it kind of getting one walker's attention. It's like, okay. Also, Daryl being like, oh yeah, like, you can hear that? The horde's heading our direction. I can hear it because it's in the wind and stuff. I'm like, yo! I mean, to be fair, Daryl's kind of been out there on his own for a while, so for him, it's kind of like, yeah, he's kind of probably picked up even more, a little trick with the clock was pretty interesting. But then, like, they finally tracked down Eugene, because at the same time, it's like, oh, Rosita's like, oh, they don't know what's going on. We have to go get to them. They don't know what they're up against. And Eugene's like, these things are smarter. And he starts bringing up some interesting stuff. I'm like, wait, are the walkers actually getting smarter? It's like, what's going on with that whole situation? And the fact of the matter is, it's like their brains aren't dead. Like, it's like they're dead in the sense of like their whole situation of being walkers, as we know, it's like a virus or something. So we know that destroying their brains is how you kill them, but the fact of the matter is, when they're alive, when they're walkers, their brain is still intact. So it's like, even rotting, there's still a piece of their brain that could be, evolving, could be learning to speak again. And now they're kind of strategizing and stuff because they start doing stuff. It's like, no, they don't make any sense. But lo and behold, you gotta give it up to your boy Jesus, because like that one walker got pushed down, he drop kicked, smashed its head, and was slicing, dude, like using a sword and everything, which is crazy. Because, you mainly seen Jesus always be kind of a more hand-to-hand combat person anyway, but it's like, when he kind of jumped off one walker and like had the sword backhand and slashed him, I was like, look at these sick moves, and he's going through and slashing him. Michonne and the others show up, and it's like, things are about to get dope. He's about to attack one walker. It dodges and then stabs him. It's like, what? It's like, that did not just happen. And it's like, you don't belong. You're here somewhere you don't belong. It's like, what the hell is that? And then it becomes like, okay, wait, what? It's like, for one, is Jesus dead? We don't know. Two, it's like, wait, are these things getting that smarter? How the hell did it do that? And it's like, the moment Michonne looked at her blade and it was red blood out, it was like, wait a minute, because it looked like fresh blood, not rotted blood like it typically is, I guess. And it's like, oh. And so they take it off because it looks like it's people. I was wondering about that. And it's like, yes, it's a principle that's been introduced in the show like seasons ago, because that was like Carol was the first one to really do it when she, what was it, like season 4/5? Because she pops up in because she was kind of on her own in season 4, and then like when she rescued the others from, was it Tartarus? Was that the place's name with the cannibals? She was rocking that. Even like, it comes up later on in season 5. It's around the the whole situation where Carl ended up losing his eye. That whole situation, like they kind of use that same principle, but it's like it's there, and so. Now it seems like this group, the Whisperers, have applied it to themselves. Because I guess by hiding amongst the walkers, like I guess there's a good enough amount of them. Hence why when they whisper, you hear it loud enough. Like I guess it's like how they communicate with each other, but they also stay hidden amongst the walkers. Because also no one's going to really realize. Like it makes you wonder how many of these SOBs are there, like amongst the group. It don't seem like it's just one or two. It seems like there might be a whole group literally hidden under them, which means like they can sway large hordes of walkers. Because what did they say? It's like you counted 140 right before. Well, now it looks like there's double that. So it's like that group combined with theirs. Like how long have they been doing this whisper thing? Like is this like a new thing because we haven't come across them before, like all this time in the series? And then there's also the situation of they're saying like you don't belong here. So it's like, is this them being like this is our territory you're stepping in? Like have they been kind of gaining power secretly this entire time? Like who is this group? What their whole thing is? Like I brought it up before. Like that's something I'd call like little whispers of. I think I've used that exact same joke before. No, not really joke, but you get what I'm trying to say. Play on words in regard about this group being some of people's favorite main antagonists in the series. So it's like, I'm very interested to find out more about this group. Because that's interesting. Because no one has, like I said, it's a thing that people know, but no one would have applied it in such a regard. How you survive, I guess you live amongst the walkers. Which is like, I mean, I guess that's the easiest way to take people out because it's like, well, for one, they're unsuspecting. Plus, you can use literally the horde as your weapon because it's something that Daryl had tried. Like, he used the dog and the people, and he tried to be like, the dog and himself as making noise, but they immediately turned and headed towards Eugene and the others. Was like, why? That is the question, too. Daryl's along with a dog, so it's like, I guess because they knew that Eugene was wounded, so it's like, why not go after someone that's wounded? They're going to be easier to take down, so that's what I'm assuming, because even Eugene was like, they circled back around twice. They weren't looking for me. They were hunting him down. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It adds this like deadly element because now you don't know which. That means you're going to want to avoid close combat with any walkers. But even in that regard, who's to say they won't sneak around with guns too? So you have to be careful. Like no walker is going to be safe to be around. And now there's a whole situation with Jesus potentially being dead. I'd assume so with the way they kind of left things, but it's like, wow, especially considering he was just like given a position of taking things over and Aaron was telling him he was kind of running from it to a certain degree, that he'd make a good leader. And now this happens. I mean, that depends on if they make it come back where it's like, no, he's good. He's not dead. We'll see. If so, if not, means things are going to get a lot more complicated for Tara because she's going to have to probably take over. But I guess this kind of works out in a sense because like while these groups are so divided, a new enemy is coming, and if they don't come together, they're going to get wiped out. I'm also curious to see what this all has to do with Negan. I want to see what he does. Like, will we see him kind of whistling at one point, swinging around Lucille again? It's definitely going to be interesting. Will we see him kind of shift over to become a good guy? I mean, with everything that he's done, him being locked up like this, like it hasn't been long enough for people to completely forgive him, but like I said, there's so much we don't know, and it's exciting because I'm like, I need to find out what caused the bad blood between everybody. Is it something we're just going to pick up? Because it don't seem like, I don't know, because The Walking Dead doesn't seem like the type of show. It hasn't really shown itself to be the type of show to show you like, oh yeah, this is what happened necessarily. Like obviously with the whole skipping time frame, like they don't really go back in time like that. Like obviously unless like, Rick's whole hallucination situation, but other than that, they don't really go back. They might in some regards, but never like I think when they first introduced Enid in season 6, that was like one instance of them doing that. But other than that, they don't really do that at all. So I don't know if we'll ever get like a flashback to explain how everything kind of turned out the way it is. But I'm excited to find out about these guys, especially because our heroes are cornered in a misty environment. It's like visibility's low. Plus there's humans disguised as walkers giving commands, kind of swaying the walkers to the direction that they want them to be. I kind of figured it might be something like that, people amongst the walkers, but then Eugene presented like, maybe it actually is the walkers. I thought that was kind of interesting, but I like to kind of subvert your attention because like, oh, maybe that is what it is. Maybe this one is like, nope, it is what you kind of figured it might be. So I'm very interested to see what happens when the season picks back up. The date I saw was February 10th. So obviously we're going to be waiting around. I mean, typically it happens like this every season with The Walking Dead. So I'm very excited to see what happens when the mid-season premieres. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.